per utilizing all the talent. It's the most talented team she's played on. So imagine being a dynamic playmaker and then all.
Boring as hell now. These games are boring. The product stinks now. You've come over here and ruined the product. The games are entertaining. She addressed
They
that.
tried to manage a player the game had never actually seen before. And the moment Indiana's front office stopped looking away, they couldn't deny what Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham had already put in motion. The vote happened. Multiple sources close to the organization are confirming it. Clark and Cunningham pushed to replace head coach Stephanie White with Kara Lawson. And when the news hit, the reaction from the fan base wasn't shock. It wasn't controversy. It was celebration. That tells you everything you need to know about where this franchise actually stands right now. Because fans don't celebrate a coaching change unless they've been watching something that doesn't add up for a long time. They don't take to social media with genuine enthusiasm unless the frustration has been building quietly, waiting for someone inside the building to finally say what everyone outside of it already knew. And what Clark and Cunningham did by making this move is confirm, through action, what fans have been repeating in comment sections and sports talk threads for months. The current system is not good enough for this roster. It is not good enough for this moment. And it is not good enough for the player who is single-handedly rewriting what professional women's basketball is capable of becoming. Kara Lawson isn't a consolation prize. She isn't a reactionary hire. She is the specific coach who, on the international stage, figured out in real time what Caitlin Clark requires, made the adjustment without hesitation, and watched the offense completely transform in front of a global audience. If you're new here and you care about what's actually happening in the WNBA beyond the surface level takes, hit subscribe right now because we are not pulling punches on this channel. Let's get into it. Let's go back to where this really started. Not in a player meeting, not in a locker room, but on an international basketball court where Kara Lawson was coaching Team USA, and initially, Caitlin Clark wasn't running the show with full freedom. The offense moved. It functioned. But it didn't breathe. And then Lawson made the adjustment, handed Clark the keys. And within minutes, the entire floor geometry shifted. Players who were good suddenly looked elite. Shots that were contested became open. Driving lanes that didn't exist opened up, like someone unlocked a door nobody else knew was there. That is not a coincidence. That is a coaching revelation. Lawson didn't need months of practice film or a full training camp to understand what Clark is. She needed 1/4 of competitive basketball to recognize that the entire offensive identity of any team Clark plays on has to be built outward from her. Not around her, not beside her, outward from her. She is the sun. Every other player benefits from her gravity. And the moment you treat her as anything less than that central force, the offense loses the very thing that makes it dangerous. Stephanie White is not a bad basketball coach. That needs to be stated clearly and without qualification, because this conversation is not about character or effort. White built something real in Indiana. She took a franchise that was wandering without direction and installed a culture that had structure, discipline, and a legitimate organizational identity. That mattered. That was necessary work at a specific point in this program's development. But the problem is that the roster has evolved past the system. And specifically, Caitlin Clark has grown into a player whose ceiling is being limited by an offensive philosophy that was designed for a different version of this team. You cannot develop Caitlin Clark. She does not need development. She needs deployment. There is a canyon of difference between those two things. And right now, Indiana is treating one of the most advanced offensive weapons in professional basketball like a project when she is already a finished product. When Clark crosses half court, opposing defenses have to account for her shooting range from beyond 35 feet. That single reality creates driving lanes for every other player on the floor that simply do not exist when she isn't out there. The help side has to stay honest. The weak side defender cannot sag. The big cannot cheat toward the paint without giving up an open pull-up. When you surround a player with that kind of spatial authority, with legitimate shooters, and then let her make decisions in real time rather than running through structured sets, You get basketball that defenses cannot genuinely solve. That is what Clark can produce. That is what this roster is capable of under the right system. Sophie Cunningham understands this better than most. And Sophie Cunningham is not someone whose opinion you dismiss lightly. She came into this league the hard way, as a player nobody handed anything to, who earned minutes through physicality and professionalism, and a reputation for showing up in the moments when the game actually mattered. She is not a storyline. She is a battle-tested professional who commands genuine respect in real locker rooms from real competitors. When she speaks inside that building, people listen, not because of followers or endorsements, because of what she has earned through years of work in a league that doesn't distribute credibility as a courtesy. And Sophie Cunningham has decided that Caitlin Clark is the cornerstone around which everything must be constructed. Not a piece of the puzzle, the cornerstone. And she is willing to go on record with that position inside player meetings where careers are actually at stake. That is not a small thing. The alliance between Clark and Cunningham carries a specific weight that goes beyond two talented players agreeing on something. It is powerful because it bridges two completely different eras of this sport. Clark is the face of the WNBA's current explosion. She represents the national television audiences, the sold-out arenas, the cultural momentum that has made women's basketball impossible to ignore. She is the reason casual fans are suddenly paying close attention. Cunningham represents the foundation that was laid before the cameras showed up. The grind, the physicality. The players who built this league through years of work that received very little mainstream recognition. She is respected by exactly the veterans who might otherwise push back against what Clark's presence demands. Together, they do not just have an opinion. They have a coalition. And coalitions in professional sports move front offices faster than anyone outside a locker room expects. Here is what makes the fan reaction so revealing. When the reports emerged that Clark and Cunningham had made their preference known, the response was not a debate about loyalty or professionalism or respecting the coaching staff's authority. The response was relief. Fans who have been watching every game, who have seen the offensive inconsistency, who have watched Clark drift to the wing waiting for a play call while the rhythm stalled, responded as if confirmation had finally arrived for something they had already worked out on their own. That instinct is not irrational. It is a direct reflection of what the tape has been showing all season long. The offense is functional without full Clark deployment. It becomes genuinely threatening when she runs the show without restriction. The gap between those two versions of this team is not marginal. It is the difference between a playoff team and a legitimate championship contender, and everyone watching closely has understood that gap for a while now. Professional sports locker rooms are not democracies. They are power structures. Veterans with tenure expect their voice to carry real weight. Stars whose value to the organization grants them unofficial authority can redirect decisions that technically belong to coaches and front offices. Role players read the room and align themselves with the direction they believe the wind is blowing. What Clark and Cunningham have done, if these reports are accurate, is not simply register a preference. They have reorganized where the actual power sits in that building.
Eliminate systemic friction and put 5 shooters
because
on the
here is
floor
what happens
simultaneously.
when the most commercially valuable player in the history of this league and one of the most respected veteran voices align on a single position.
Another development cycle. Now,
everyone else in that locker room has to decide where they stand. And the vast majority of professional players are not going to position themselves against Caitlin Clark.
You have to zoom out.
Not out of fear, out of professional awareness of which direction this franchise is heading and which direction their own careers benefit from following. The players who have thrived within Stephanie White's structure, the veterans who benefit from a more controlled pace and half-court sets that give them time and space, those players are now holding a very difficult hand. They can voice concerns. They can appeal to the front office about culture and continuity. But they cannot argue with what has happened every single time Clark has been given complete offensive latitude. The data does not bend for sentiment. The tape does not adjust to protect anyone's comfort. Kara Lawson already demonstrated something extraordinary during her time coaching Team USA. Not just that she could adapt, but the way she adapted. She admitted publicly, with cameras present, that she had approached the situation incorrectly and needed to recalibrate. That is not a standard coaching response at the elite level. Coaching culture at the highest levels of the sport is built around projecting authority and certainty, regardless of what is actually happening on the floor. The instinct is always to defend the decision, explain the rationale, protect the system. Lawson broke that pattern entirely. She essentially told the world that the evidence had corrected her, and she had responded to it immediately. That is coachability in the coach herself. That is the rarest quality in elite sports leadership. And Caitlin Clark noticed. Clark has spent her career navigating systems where the coaching staff's preferences sat above the team's actual ceiling. She has managed press conferences while privately understanding that the offense was being constrained by decisions made above her. When she watched Lawson recognize the mistake in real time and course correct on the biggest possible stage, that registered in a way that no tactical whiteboard session ever could. The practical picture of a Lawson-coached Indiana team is not difficult to describe. Clark operating as the primary decision-maker in every critical situation, not rotating into sets late, not sharing ball handling time in a balanced structure, but running the offense from the opening possession. Cunningham setting hard screens, attacking closeouts off Clark's gravity, knocking down corner threes, and using her physical edge to make life uncomfortable for opposing wings in half-court situations. A pace that opposing defenses cannot sustain for 4 full quarters, because the spacing is relentless and the decision-making is immediate. A coaching staff that makes halftime adjustments based on what the numbers are actually saying rather than defending what was drawn up before the season started. That is a formula that works. That is a formula the best teams in the WNBA are already running in various forms. And Indiana has the talent to run it at a higher level than almost anyone in the league, because Indiana has Caitlin Clark. The fan celebration around this story is not separate from the basketball. It is the basketball. The people who have been watching every game are not celebrating a personnel drama. They are celebrating what the change would mean on the floor. They are celebrating the possibility of watching Clark operate without the ceiling being artificially lowered. They are celebrating the version of this team that the raw talent has always suggested was possible, but that the current system has not yet fully assembled. There is a window here. Championship windows in the WNBA are compressed. The competition evolves faster every season. The franchises that figure out how to build fully around their best player and remove systemic friction are the ones making deep postseason runs. Indiana has the best player in the league. Indiana has the veteran credibility around her to change how opposing coaching staffs have to prepare. What Indiana still needs is the coaching architecture that takes everything in place and turns it into something that actually terrifies the rest of the league. Stephanie White built the foundation that carried this organization to this point. That deserves genuine acknowledgement. But foundations are not championships. And the players in that locker room who have the ability to win a title are no longer in the business of laying more foundation. They are focused on building upward. Right now, with the coach who has already proven on the international stage that she knows precisely how to do it. Every game that passes with this offense performing below its ceiling is a game that does not come back. Clark is not a prospect. She is a generational player operating at the peak of her powers in real time. The opportunity cost of misdeploying that is not theoretical. It shows up in wins, in playoff results, in championship probability that shifts every single season. What Clark and Cunningham have done by making this vote known is force a decision, not in some future planning cycle. Now, between the comfort of continuity and the ceiling of a change that could genuinely transform what this franchise becomes, that is not a comfortable place for any front office to sit, but it is where Indiana is. Because the two most important voices in that building have decided they are finished waiting for the conversation to happen on its own. The WNBA is changing. Not slowly, fast. The power structures that define this league are being reorganized by commercial momentum, player empowerment, and a generation of talent that has never been willing to accept the ceiling that was handed to it. Clark is the most visible symbol of that reorganization, but she is not doing it alone. She has Cunningham beside her, she has the right coach waiting, and she has a fan base that celebrated the moment this news dropped, because they have been watching the whole time and they already knew what the answer needed to be. If this kind of analysis is what you want every time something real moves in the WNBA, make sure you are subscribed, because this story is nowhere near finished, and we are going to follow it exactly where it leads. The old guard had every opportunity to adapt. Clark and Cunningham have made their move. Indiana now has to decide whether they are building toward a championship or managing toward comfort. And based on everything we have seen, everyone who has been paying close attention already knows which one of those choices the fans are going to celebrate.